Hello everyone, welcome to the Sellerboard show. My name is Vlad, and Pavel Zerdov is our guest today. We talked about the Amazon sales model, which is called online arbitration from China. That was news to me. I've never heard of it, I didn't know it was possible. So it was very interesting for me personally. We discussed the entry threshold and how much money we need to invest. Looking ahead, it's relatively small when compared, for example, with private label. How to choose a product without violating intellectual property. How to bargain with the Chinese and test the product with minimal risks. Start with a small test batch, gradually grow and not invest a lot of money at once. Also, along the way, Pavel shared a few interesting stories and life hacks. So watch, it will be interesting. Please click like if you like this topic or our channel in general. And don't forget to subscribe to it. This is very important for us. If you have any questions, please comment. All links will be in the description. Sellerboard is our profitability analysis service for sellers on Amazon. You will receive a free trial by clicking on the link in the description. We have a bunch of different useful tools in the package, and we are constantly working on new functionality. So if you haven't seen it or aren't using it yet, click on the link and try it for free. Hello everyone, welcome to the Sellerboard show. Vlad, my guest today is Pavel Zerdov.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
Pash, please tell us about how you came to Amazon. You know, quite by chance in 2015, I heard a podcast on VKontakte from some dude who talked so sensibly about Amazon. I became interested and went to study with him, actually. The training was not very high quality, but thank God, because I began to figure out for myself what was going on. I joined all the existing Facebook groups, there were very few of them in fact. I began to dig up information, and I slowly figured it out myself.
It just happened.
Are you doing this full time?
Do you have any other work?
Right now, yes. But I've been doing this full time for about 2.5 years. Before that, I combined it with work. When I realized that my job took up a lot of time and generated half as much revenue as Amazon, I realized that I was doing something completely different. And I realized that it was Amazon that needed to be dealt with, because it became very difficult to break up, let's say, and it just didn't make sense. How quickly did you reach full-time income? I've been studying since 2015. Since the end, it took me about 2 years for, say, my good salary to be doubled by my income from Amazon.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's start with the models, maybe. I know you don't have a very standard model. Tell us about your model. How are you, dear? It's not completely out of the box.
This is a common model.
It's called online arbitration from China.
What does it mean?
We import Chinese goods to existing listings. But very often one of the first questions is asked directly, is it a law or is it a scheme? And she wasn't recognized at all. It is absolutely legal. We do not violate any trademarks or rights, because I am against the import of counterfeit goods. I know there are such strategies, but I still don't practice, simply because firstly it will be very short-term, and secondly, I just buy my own things very often in stores, yes, for example some. I want, if I order sneakers there, I don't know ECO yes, then I want them to come to me for real non-sneakers. That's why, even from a moral point of view, I never have any crafts. These are the usual Chinese listings where we sell. Okay, so basically, online arbitration. You buy some product that already has maybe some Chinese brand or no brand, you send it to FBA, and well, Amazon sells it, well, Amazon already sends it. further along the arbitration scheme. Yes, that is, it turns out that we deliver goods according to FBA, buy some small batch for the test, sell, everything is fine, then we buy, respectively, a large batch.
Okay.
And this is your main model, or you have a private label there, or... This is my main activity now. I have quite large batches now. I drive by sea, well, not by containers yet, but by direct flights, so we confidently carry. I'm starting out quietly, I have a trademark, but so far PL is difficult for me, to be honest, and it's a little unclear how people get into it. I don't understand anything about China, because the Chinese have a lot of nuances, such very peculiar guys. We are very different, of course. Yes, I can confirm from my own experience. I can actually tell you a couple of stories about China, just so that you understand how completely different we are with them. Well, let's probably start with that. I mean, I know the online arbitration model, but usually, that's why I said non-standard, but maybe it's just that I've never heard of it. But usually online arbitrages buy online in America, and you buy in China. In general, why is it beneficial in principle, and why does it work? It happened to me, let's say, historically. That's where I started. I tried arbitration within the United States, but I didn't like the fact that my father, when buying the goods for me, delivered them himself, and there was also heavy dumping. I realized that this was some kind of completely wild story. I didn't like it, so I went back to China. Well, actually, in China, I like the marginality of the business, because it's just so good. And again, this is still such a stepping stone to PL. Because I like PL, I want to build it, and now at least I understand how to work with the Chinese, what to expect from them, what not to expect from them, and therefore I will build PL, yes. Okay, marginality. A lot of questions. Let's have one more to start with then. How much money does it take to get started? Look, there is an opinion that supposedly you can start with $100 there. In fact, of course, this is absolutely not true and of course nonsense, yes, such an infogypsy. You need somewhere around $1,000, give or take. I recommend starting with this amount, because if the amount is much higher, then it starts. Of course, there is such a desire to build a bridge along the river. You know, when there's a lot of money, you start throwing it around and stop analyzing listings clearly. And when it's $1,000, then, in principle, well, at the same time, these are 2, 3, 4 batches of the initial test product, on which you already understand how the full cycle of interaction with the Chinese takes place.
How it all works.
What kind of marginality can we expect? In fact, the margin is from 20% to... It can be very different. At the first stage, of course, it won't be very big, because I recommend starting with tests. We cannot immediately launch a product flight for a new listing that we do not understand, even if we have checked it 100 times, because this can lead to a very big disaster. That is, to immediately come and cut money on Amazon. It's not such a story, it doesn't happen, right? Therefore, we buy such a completely minimal batch of goods, there are 50, maybe 100 pieces, and we simply deliver it by air delivery, DHL, whatever, and test the listing first. And then we get more marginals on our shipments, due to the fact that we deliver it quickly by sea or just by sea, and already by some kind of large batch. Okay, listen, then let's figure it out from the beginning. That is, the very first stage, as I understand it, is the search for a listing, the search for a product. We start by searching on Amazon. That is, we are first looking for a product, and then we are looking for the same product in China. Okay, what criteria do I find on Amazon? What's next? As a matter of fact, we are looking for a product that is not protected by a trademark, which does not have logos on it. Preferably, there should be more than one photo. The product should be small enough, not very large, not very heavy, but it is. Of course, everything is relative, because we can, of course, bring goods by sea. But I would still start, if we are talking about beginners, then some kind of product so that it can be brought in by air, yes, and it is very important that the product is as simple as possible so that it is impossible to do anything in it. Not so, because if we're talking about some kind of, I don't know, some kind of complex technical device, then you have to understand that there will be a lot of defects, because we don't order inspections of goods for the track. After all, it follows in our margin, yes, the income there is not the same as on peel. Therefore, it is necessary to approach the choice of goods very sensibly, in fact. Okay, so you don't want to import synchrophasatrons?
Absolutely not. Okay.
And not fragile, because I was delivering fragile things, and there were just a million returns, of course. And fragile ones, like glass for example, right? There were spare parts, relatively speaking, light bulbs, and of course there were just an incredible number of returns, and of course it was terrible. Okay, please explain, what does it mean to have no brand at all? This means that I don't know, maybe we'll take some example. Come on, I always say a skipping rope. That is, this is a jump rope of some standard design, which in principle does not have a brand at all, which someone imports and sells in America. Look, yes, there are two options. It happens that you are some kind of abandoned PL. Yes, that is, for example, you started and for example just dropped the listing. Yes, we just pick it up and deliver it to it. Or how someone created the listing there, just completely standard. I don't know, maybe some silicone molds, for example, popular ones. How the garlic press used to be popular, that is, how we have silicone molds of some kind. They have no logo, no trademark, they are sold by more than 2 or 3 FBA. In principle, if we are satisfied with everything in this regard, we can also start. Here is the number of FBA sellers. What does it matter? Look, if he's the only FBA salesman there, we can see from the pile that he's been there all the time, even if there's no trademark, then we need to understand that everything is wrong in this world, nothing is accidental. That is, there is probably a catch, he protects his listing, so of course, we try not to go on such lists. That is, the FBA number should be at least 2 to 3. Okay, this is an important point from my point of view. You know, I also sold at the very beginning of my career as a PL. I was selling a product, I didn't have a brand on it. Well, I'm just basically a tester. I created a listing with no stamp at all. Then I added a brand there, changed the photos. But, in principle, you need to set the brand when you create a listing. That is, something needs to be written. I also wanted to add that, for example, I always tell my students that we are not hijackers. That is, for example, if we find a listing that we like, it doesn't have a trademark, but the seller who created the listing is there, and he is the only one there. We do not cling to this listing. That is, I am strongly against hijacking, because it is very. First of all, this is very bad from a moral point of view. Secondly, we go to the PL ourselves. That's why it's a very bad story. Moreover, it may just end up with you getting ransoms and pleas.
Well, I see.
It's unpleasant to get involved in a fight. People will protect their business, of course.
Okay, we found the product.
You said that there is an option when there is some kind of stamp on it. That's what they are.
What to look at?
Should there be some Chinese word? Look, to be honest, I've already seen all the Chinese goods. So I open the listing, I understand, is it a Chinese product or is it not a Chinese product, right? But the most important thing is that there is no trademark. That is, if there is a trademark, then of course you should never go there, of course. How would you know if it's a trademark or not? Yes, it is very easy to verify through the USPTO or through JUSJO. You just look at the date tab in the pile, and everything is indicated there. Basically, you need a pile. So you see how many sellers there were, you see the price development, the best seller of the market, you can roughly estimate how much you will sell per day. You see the price, you probably know your purchase price, and you can calculate whether you will have a margin.
Yes, of course.
We are based on the price that the Chinese give us for the test, that is, we buy the minimum batch. And accordingly, we understand that next time the margin will most likely be higher if there are not, of course, some sharp price spikes.
But again, only tests will show.
That is, we can assume anything, but until we actually deliver the goods and at least submit a test fleet, we don't understand what else could be. Because, in fact, maybe listing is safe now, but tomorrow it becomes dangerous simply because someone is squeezing listings for themselves.
You know that.
In this regard, I can give you a little advice on how to try to protect yourself a little in this regard.
Come on.
I'm doing it very simply. I create a shipment, that is, I ship the product, but after that I go to inventory and close the listing. In other words, I choose cloud listing.
What happens?
The product is necessary, everything is in order, no problem. It appears in your inventory. You check the listing again when you already have the product on FBA, check it. If everything is fine, nothing has changed, just press release, and in half an hour your listing will be active. It's just that it actually saves you a lot of nerves, because such cases, when the listing was pressed while the goods were on the way, it is often and now more common. That is, it wasn't so active before, but now it's happening very actively. Listen, what does it mean to squeeze? Does this mean that the pictures and text have been changed? They change the title, they change the brand, they change the photos, and that's it, and you're welcome. And there may be a trademark. That is, you arrived, the goods arrived, they immediately complain about you, and that's it.
You got the wrong product.
And what should I do actually if this happens? Search for other listings. Oh, okay, then another question. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves a little, but I already have FBA, how do I transfer it from one? Previously, just maybe a month ago, the so-called remapping technique was working, that is, it was possible to move goods without taking them to the prep, but unfortunately that's all now. That is, now only the export to prep, the gluing of new ones from KU and the delivery to a new leaf. Unfortunately, the remap has stopped working now. Okay. Well, it's bad of course, but it's interesting to know. We don't work in the realities that exist, we can't change anything, so we just have to adjust. Now let's talk about the second step. You've chosen a product, it seems like nothing, what's next? We need to negotiate with the Chinese. Yes, regarding the Chinese, in fact, I also wanted to touch on such a sensitive topic a little. I recommend starting with Alibaba. Although it's very fashionable to scold her now, to say that Alibaba is intermediaries, it's not factories there, and so on and so forth.
It's all true.
In fact, yes, there are even, managers who have never even seen the factory where they buy goods. It's really true.
But
in arbitration, we often work with intermediaries, simply because we have very small test batches. That is, when you write to the factory that you need, say, 100 pieces of goods, they tell you you're cool, we're cool, but take 5,000 pieces or 200 pieces.
And you say no, give me 100.
They say, well dude, I'm sorry please, but at least take it there, at least 4,000. Therefore, in this regard, intermediaries help us out a lot, because intermediaries can give us 50 pieces, 100 pieces for the test. Because to immediately add 5,000 pieces of goods to a new listing, which will be served 5 pieces a day, is just complete suicide. Because if something went wrong, then you have a lot of frozen money. You will just submit an account with the product. Why do you need it?
Yes. Los Alibaba.
You know they speak English to you. Yes, let's just say that we can negotiate with them. And there is transaction insurance. Of course, they have transaction insurance built into Alibaba. They charge 3% of the amount from above, you pay, and if something goes wrong, then in a very large number of cases they meet you halfway. And the plus is that the Chinese themselves can do the delivery at the initial stages.
That is, the prep is not needed.
They calmly paste your SKUs, all the labels on the product, and ship it themselves. Unlike the same 1188 and other things. You just enter your card on Alibaba, pay directly. Everything is made much easier. Although there are, of course, some nuances. If we're talking about a site that exists in China, there are 1688, and so on. Yes, it's actually cheap. But we need to understand that this is what some kind of 10 to 15% equality on the price is. You give it to an intermediary to buy back the goods, because you can't pay for the goods without being in China. You can't pay from Russia, for example, yes, let's say there or from somewhere else. You'll have to buy it back and bring it to your prep center in China.
It's time.
It's not much, but it's still money for the prep center to put stickers on. And plus, you're also losing out on the fact that, again, while the forwarder and prep center are forming there, it's going to be a long time coming. Therefore, Alibaba is still much easier.
Yes.
Which I'll tell you about too.
We have our own, let's say,
As far as I remember, in 1688. Secondly, many do not have an export license. I think in China, when I was selling, I did this. I had an assistant in Shenzhen. I found it through Upwork.
And she had an export license.
She was looking for me at 16.88 and was giving me her margin. That is, she told me, here is the listing for 16.88. Here is your price. I need a small margin. There is 1% that I will do the rest.
Here.
And she explained to me that many people do not have an export license, meaning they can only sell in China, and they cannot process these documents. Maybe a forwarder can, but I agree with you. Tell me a question like this. You were talking about trade assurance. I've never actually used it. I found the goods on Alibaba, but I paid with PayPal.
It was fast-paced. Well, or by bank transfer.
How does it work? So you're paying directly in Alibaba for the product? Bank transfer in China is a risky business because there are a lot of people there, and therefore scammers, according to the law of large numbers. And he's crying for money by bank transfer to someone unknown in China. They're across the country, they probably offer it to him. Well, yes. This is complete madness, because you'll never figure anything out in your life, never ever. That's why you can't do that. PayPal is a very good topic. PayPal gets 5.5% for transaction insurance. Yes, you can pay with PayPal, but the Chinese, they often add their own commission for withdrawing money there in China.
What is insurance?
This is Alibaba's built-in transaction insurance system. That is, you are chatting in Alibaba in a private chat, inside the system. Then you get an invoice, you pay it directly to Alibaba, enter your credit card, debit card, and the money is debited from you. Accordingly, when the goods leave for you, the supplier enters the shipping track number in Alibaba. If, for example, he didn't come to you, then you press, or you have some kind of dispute, you press the refund button, and you have such, proceedings. That is, you're using the idea that the product is, say, of poor quality, or it wasn't delivered on time, or whatever. And before, again, it was a little easier. Alibaba went to the meeting faster. Now they require, of course, some kind of evidence in order for the money to be returned. But in general, it works. I used it. Fortunately, the Chinese are now, of course, reliable suppliers. I'm using a little less now, or a woman. I'm buying it right now according to your scheme. I found the latest one in China, which is looking for goods inside. I just have other parties, big ones. They talked about newbies. That's why 3D shunners, of course, helps you get your money back and keep your deals very good. But, in principle, this is not a guarantee. In other words, you will also need to prove that the product is really broken. That is, the supplier can say that there is no type, it is not broken. Unfortunately, yes. That is, PayPal, of course, protects better. PayPal is still more focused on protecting you as a customer. Of course, this show is more difficult for us, but in general, out of relatively speaking, 100% of the communication in this show, we will win in 90.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes. Yes, because if you pay by transfer, then there is no chance at all. Only he counts on loyalty. In no case can you pay by transfer. They sometimes suggest. It often became less frequent. Previously, the Bestland Union was offered there. They say, translate, we'll do everything here. You can't do that.
Okay.
We talked about the first batch, that it should be small for the test. How to bargain with the Chinese. Get the best price? And anyway, does it make sense when to do it? I understood the question. Look at this thing. You can bargain with the Chinese, but I never bargain on the first shipments. I'll explain why. It is not customary for the Chinese to say no. They'll tell you yes, but unfortunately they can't do you this way. They may send a worse quality product. Or they can somehow save on shipping in some other way. That is, you understand that they are simply not interested in giving to their margin on the first small batch. It was a cartoon about how you can make 2 hats there, right?
Can I make hats again?
You can, of course. That is, you can make any product for your money, but the quality is, of course, worse. That's why I trade with them with the third batch of goods. Because it's already clear that you're really paying, you're really buying, and you're not just haggling. Therefore, I strongly remind you to bargain with them on the first shipments.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. I've never thought about it. You're probably right.
If you squeeze it, there's a buck rolling around, you're so happy, and he sends you a souffle product.
Okay, I see. Okay, so watch it.
As I understand it, we don't need to advertise, we don't need to optimize the listing, change the pictures, or do we need to? We almost never do that. You can run ads, for example. If, for example, let's say there are no FBA products on the listing at all, you go in first after FBM. You can try to run ads in order to simply improve the BSR a little. But in general, I've tried doing this, but it often doesn't have the effect you'd expect, so it's better to find a good selling listing right away. Okay, basically, after we've uploaded the product to Amazon, there's basically nothing else to do except the next batch.
Or should be.
We need to control prices, we need to understand what is happening on the listing all the time, because the situation is constantly changing. But relatively speaking, there is nothing more to do, except to keep an eye on the drain and constantly look for new forks. Because without searching for forks, nothing will happen anymore, because there are forks that live a very long time. I have forks that I serve from the very beginning. It's been there for about 4 years now. Yes, there are forks, and there are forks that die there in a month and a half, because a bunch of new sellers come in and just drop the whole patient there on the day to such a level that it is simply impossible to work. Although dumping is actually one of the strategies of work, and if, for example, you delivered goods by sea, then you can quite survive this dumping and even lead in order to just do everything. That's actually the idea of the job too.
How do I keep track of the price?
Manually or using a repriser.
An Amazon reporter?
The Amazon repriser, it's terrible so far. I never use it at all. There are reporters who use third-party ones, but in general, I usually keep track of the price, just sit down in the evening, check prices everywhere and see who's watching the trends. And of course, I use reprisers. What's the strategy? Do you need to put the same price as everyone else? Should I set the minimum FBA? Look, well, it's important for me to be in the bay box, of course. I try to choose those listings where, at least before I came, there was more or less stability at the price. Accordingly, I try not to sell negative products. That is, if I see some kind of hard doping, then there are two options. If you have free money and you're willing to spend it for a while. Let's say it's frozen. Yes, it's just that I prefer to skip these doping gusts and let them calmly go through there and reset. Yes, because in any case, they will all leave in a panic. Yes, that is, it's an unavoidable question, it's just a matter of time. If you have a large batch or you have made a mistake in the price, you can sell at a disadvantage, but at least you will return the working capital. It all depends on your financial capabilities and your moral peace of mind. Okay, then there's another question. Probably, many listeners want to ask it at that moment.
Invoices.
That is, inevitably, from time to time Amazon will ask you, they will have doubts, so to speak, what to do in this case. This is, let's say, the second and most honest question about Chinese invoices. After asking about the factory, what is the counterfactual, or is it not a factory, a counterfactual? During this time, I have already developed an understanding that Chinese invoices are accepted. And there is a completely understandable form that I give to my students, again, yes, and which I will share with all subscribers. We discussed this with you, and there is a clear cover letter. That is, I know exactly how to make your Chinese invoice accepted, and they are definitely accepted by 100%. Because they used to be requested less often, now they are requested more often, but just yesterday or the day before yesterday we even had invoices checked, they are accepted without problems. Unless you violate, of course, the rules of trademarks and other things.
And what is this invoice?
This is basically an invoice from a Chinese supplier, not even necessarily the manufacturer, right? Yes, This is a Chinese real invoice. We do not forge documents, because you will simply be banned for forging documents. There is just a requirement to issue an invoice. It is very important that the Chinese supplier has a website outside Alibaba. If the website is listed on the invoice along with your and the supplier's contacts, phone, email, then Amazon will have no questions during verification.
Okay.
If the website has this product. Okay, are there any other points, so to speak, bureaucratic? Or, in principle, do you send invoices, deliver goods, and there shouldn't be any big difficulties? The cover letter that you write is also very important from the invoice. Again, I will share it so that everyone has an understanding of how it is compiled. Unfortunately, they do not accept a cover invoice without a letter. I don't know why, what is the reason for this, but you need to have a letter in order for it to be.
Is this a letter from someone?
From the supplier to you? Just a text message is typed to Amazon, that Amazon has been paid an invoice from us, we leave it. Here are the contact details indicated directly in the text of the letter, the supplier's contact details, because unfortunately, support apparently has to type some kind of scanned invoice and numbers into the phone, they just copy and paste them, it's easier for them. Okay, so it's just your response to Amazon. Just an answer to Amazon. Okay, then that's the question. You talked a lot about the tests, especially at the beginning, if we deliver a small batch first, a large batch. Tell me more about what we're testing, and how it works. We are actually testing the following. We test the listing by purchasing a small batch to test hypotheses about demand, competitors, and the reliability of the supplier and product. Because we don't do the inspection, because it eats up the margins. And for 100 pieces, not a single inspector will go to test anything. We're just looking to see if we get any negative feedback. Of course, when buying a product, we ask the supplier to tell us that the product is exactly the same, and send us the dimensions and photos. But we must understand that, I will also say later that the Chinese have such a word, such a chapato, yes, that is. This means that, yes, the same thing, yes, actually.
For example,
Let's say, for example, that there is a round cup and a square cup, which is chapato, yes, that is about the same thing. It's a cup, it's a glass cup, that's the same thing.
yes, that is.
So that we just understand our slightly different mentalities. Therefore, we check, we sell the product, we check, and we receive negative reviews about the product and its quality. If everything is okay, and the product sold out with dinner at our speed, the price did not fall, and we did not get negative reviews, straight in shoals, then we start it again. If any questions arise, then of course, we either change the supplier or accordingly, change the listing. That is, we make a decision. To deliver goods without testing from a new supplier is, of course, utter madness. Because, of course, this requires an inspection, but we don't do an inspection.
I understand.
Listen, I had that story too. I didn't know the word, but I was selling a very rare product, phone cases. I ordered the first batch and sold it.
I ordered a second one.
She came in a different color, and I say well, the same thing. I say, well, no, like you didn't say that it should be the same color. It's also black, it's just a different black, kind of a little bluish, so there's a joke.
It's a normal story, right? Yeah.
Also, by the way, they were also leather. The problem with the skin is that the skin, in principle, is not twice the same. That is, they need him to try very hard, the supplier, to find the same skin. That is, it is really difficult for them. So, in short, if you want to deal with phone cases, first understand this issue thoroughly, think about it, it didn't go well for me. Okay, then tell me about the prep center. As I understand it, you said that you didn't need it at first. In principle, you need it, except for these cases when you need to return the goods and reglue them. If we are talking about Chinese or American prep centers, they are not required at the initial stage of working with Amazon, since the Chinese themselves will pack the goods for Amazon. They'll put stickers on you, put stickers on the master box without any problems, they'll send everything themselves. If we are talking about further work, then it will inevitably be about the same scheme as yours. That is, there is a certain intermediary of the company or a girl boy who are looking for goods for you in China and buy them back. That's how I work, so it's easier, it gives you more marginality. But we need a clip center, because no one will glue the stickers, and of course, we will send the goods ourselves. Vorin, maybe consolidate goods, different factories, collect goods, this can only be a clip center. I work with a Chinese clip center, in fact, it is quite convenient, adequate, and the most interesting thing is that it is much cheaper than with a center in the United States. For example, let's say a sticker in the United States costs 50 cents per piece. For example, I recently made stickers for 1,000 units, and I had to do it for $20.
In China.
The difference is global, yes, and moreover, $20 is, relatively speaking, a day of work for a Chinese employee. That is, they say, please, here he is dealing with his goods, because he will work on time, here he has received $20. Moreover, they do everything, that is, they even check some of my goods for quality, and even these $20, they even revealed some kind of defect, put it aside, and then sent it separately. Therefore, they are quite adequate, and you can work with them normally. I have some goods that I sent, for example, through American trade centers, because there are some goods that are a little controversial, for which it would be better if the goods came from the USA. That is, there are some Chinese trademarks for which I have invoices, but unfortunately, for some reason they are not accepted if you send the goods directly through China. I don't know why it works this way, but if the same product arrives through a spread center in the United States, then Chinese invoices are accepted without problems. What is the reason for this? I'm not ready. That is, some kind of, apparently, Amazon internal instructions.
It's clear. Listen, that's cool. An interesting model.
You were talking about private label at the beginning and about the private label path. What is your business development vision? Where are we going? I have several niches that I am ready to move into. Well, it's easier for me, of course, because first of all, I understand that I'm just selling this product through arbitration. I mean, I know him very well, and there are things that can just be improved in order for him, because I have negative feedback from customers. I understand what needs to be improved in order for him to sell well and for customers to like him. I have an understandable factory, I have an understandable relationship with them. That is, it's much easier to build a gel this way, yes, because I know them. I have been working with them for 4 years with this factory, and in principle, we went all the way there with them. They're like that, they're swearing before hugging, that is, everything is like that. There is a completely understandable attitude. So, yes, I really like Paley. I've studied advertising a little bit, I've learned a lot. In general, it is clear what to do. I'll be getting started. Of course, I will do both, because arbitration is for now. Let's say that almost 100% of my work is arbitration. Because the batches are quite large, the model is clear, and the margin is good. And basically, let's say I haven't had the same intellectual complaints in 2 years. That is, I work stably, I don't break anything, I don't run through red lights. How much time does it take you per day? Sometimes it can be a whole day. I mean, it's clear that, these things again are gypsy, these things that work for half an hour a day, and you wallow under the flames, of course, it doesn't go away that way. I have days when I don't have to do it at all. Yes, that is, there are 2 or 3 days a week. I can go about my business there, but of course, naturally, I control the process through my phone or something.
Yes. Sure.
I often work, say, in this field all day. I still have some training, so it's usually a full-time job. And he's like that, he happens until 9, I don't know, until 9.
In this format.
Well, if you want to earn money, work.
There is no kalyava.
This is business as usual.
I agree.
Tell me about the training. Yes, there really isn't much to tell about him. Learning is, more of a hobby, because I have about 100 students now, a little less. I don't advertise, I don't host webinars. Students come by themselves, by word of mouth. I teach exactly the same strategy of arbitrage. That is, people come to me there from flipping, they learn from something. We have such a small community, such a lamp chat that we created. That is, only our students are there, we share useful things, we help each other. Even sometimes we deliver goods together. For example, some cargo is lost there, there's not enough cargo there, right? Let's say they bring their cargo there and add it to mine. That is, this is how we communicate and help each other.
Interesting.
Listen, tell us how to find you and this community. I will leave my contact without any problems. You can write in a telegram. And regarding the invoices, if anyone needs help, I will help without any problems.
I'll share the form. I have a form.
I will share the letter. I'll share some of the best ways to do this. Write without any problems, of course.
Okay.
Then the contact will be in the description. Pavel, thank you very much for coming. A lot of useful information, new. I hope it's for you too, not just for me.
And good luck, good turns.
Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you. While. Thanks for attention.
I hope you enjoyed it. Please write what you think about this model, about our podcast, and ask your questions in the comments. We will also be glad if you like us and if you subscribe to our channel. The subscribe button is under this video. I'll see you in a week. Good luck and good sales.
While.
The subtitles were created by Dima Torzov.